Hello YouTube, and this is my tutorial on how to solve the Fisher cube. So the Fisher cube, first of all, it's a 3x3 mod, so solving it, well, you'll find is very much like a 3x3. If you don't know how to solve the 3x3 yet, I require that you learn how to solve it, the 3x3 before learning how to solve this, because it will make it a lot easier. So let's get down into the steps. The first step is the cross or the X on the bottom. The second step is the corners of the first layer, or what looks like edges. Or else, if you are a CFOP solver on 3x3, you can even use F2L to your advantage. The next step is fixing parity error. And then is the orientation of the X on top, or the cross, whatever you call it. And the next step is permutation of the cross on top. The second to last step is the permutation of the corners on top. And the next step is pure orientation of the corners on top. And after all these steps, you will be solved. So get your cube scrambled and we'll get into the tutorial. So as we begin our tutorial, let me give you some notation. So these two squares on the top and bottom, the white and yellow side, are obviously the centers. These little edges that are in a square shape are also centers. So there's 4 of them along the middle layer. These things that look like corners, they're actually edge pieces. So there are 8 of them on the top and bottom, but that leaves 4 more edges hiding in the middle layer, and they're the long things that look like centers. Those are edges. And finally, all of these structures that look like edges are actually corners. And that's what makes the Fisher cube so bizarre, because it interchanges all the pieces and it's meant to mess up your mind. So let's get into some tips and tricks for the first step. So if you have your cube scrambled, it should look very shape-shifted and very confusing. Hopefully we'll get that fixed in a few minutes. As I mentioned before, the first step is solving the white cross, or the yellow one, or whatever just happens to be one of the 2 opposite sides on your cube that have centers that actually look like centers. So, trying not to confuse you, let's get going. So first of all, I see here that there's already an edge connected with the white center. So we can just do that by a rotation, and that will connect this edge to its proper center. I see that this edge is already connected to its center, but the center is flipped. So when I bring it up into position with the white center, the center, this blue-red center, will be flipped. So let me show you how to fix that. So the way you fix that if you have a flip center is that you bring it to the bottom layer. So right now this edge, this white, blue, red edge is in the bottom layer. Rotate it to one side. Do an F move twice. So now you have you flip the center. Rotate this edge back to connect it. And now bring it up to the white side. Okay, now I see that there's an edge over here, and the center that's connected with isn't flipped 180 degrees, but 90 degrees. So this follows pretty much the same process. So you bring it to the down layer, you bring it to one side, you flip the edge to the correct orientation, you put the edge back, and now it's correctly aligned, and you just bring it to the top. And our final edge is stuck here, in between two edges that we've already made. So you can just bring it out like you would usually do with a cross edge on a 3x3. So we've just brought out the edge and it's right here, and let's connect it to its center and flip it to connect it to the cross. So now our cross is finished. So now I'm going to do a quick thing about corners. We already have one corner solved. That's pretty lucky. And this blue-white corner is right here, right above the place where it needs to go. So we can just do it with an L prime, U prime, L. And this green corner is already here, right, ready to be inserted. So we can just do R, U prime, R prime. And that has a center edge solved for us as well. And so this red-white corner, which is the last corner, goes in here, so we can bring it above the place where it goes. Do R, U2, R prime to set it up, and then a U prime, and then R, U, R prime. So the next step is doing the edges in the middle layer. So first of all, we already have one solved here, so let's go with red. This is the red center that goes right here, and you can insert it from any direction. It doesn't really matter, but let's just do it from the right, since a lot of solvers like doing it from the right. So let's do U prime as a setup move, L prime, U, L, and it's already paired up now, and then just put it in. And now let's do the orange one. So the orange one is right here. Let's do it to the left this time. So bring it out to the left. R, U prime, R prime, and then it's paired up, so just insert it in. And so the last edge that we must solve into the middle layer is the blue edge. And we'll basically just do the same thing I did before. It should be very intuitive if you know how to do 3x3, which you should. Continuing our tutorial on the Fisher Cube, let me teach you something that's very important that you may encounter when solving the Fisher Cube. This is called a parity error. It occurs about once every 2 solves, and here's the way you fix it. So after you've done all the first 2 layers, you just, this is more of an intuitive thing than an algorithm. One case you may have is the T, where 3 edges are correctly oriented, and the other case is where you simply have an edge and a center line. And the way you fix it is you just take out an F12 pair, or just take it out if you're a beginner's method solver or keyhole, and then you just do a U2, and then so we're back to our original position. I know I did an orientation to show you where the corner went, and then you do R, U2, R prime, and then you do U, and then you just connect the pair with an F prime, and then you do a U prime. You connect it with the cross edge and other things, and then you insert. And that will help you fix parity. And then you can go ahead and complete the solve. So I'll finish the rest of the tutorial. Okay, so in this video, we will get to the last layer. So the first step is getting all the edges correctly flipped so that all the edges face yellow on top. Now I wouldn't use OLL and PLL for the last layer, because sometimes it will twist the centers. I'll show you how it does that later in this video. But let's get the cross on top first. So quickly I'll recreate the three cases, and I'll pause the video real quick. So the first case is what many people call the dot. It's when none of these edges are correctly flipped. So this algorithm requires some moves, if this thing can focus. So it's F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime, and then you rotate. You do a Y2, then F, U, R prime, F prime. And that will get you your cross-oriented correctly. A second case is what many cubers call an L. And that's when you have two adjacent edges correctly oriented. And the algorithm for this case is F, U, R, U prime, R prime, F prime. And that will get you your cross correctly oriented. This case is known as a line or an I, and the algorithm is very simple. F, R, U, R prime, U prime, F prime. And the last case, with all the edges oriented, is known as a skip. Okay, now let's move on to edges permutation. So here we have two adjacent edges in their correct permutation. So the algorithm for switching these two edges is R, U, R prime, U, R, U2, R prime, U. And so all the edges are correctly oriented. Okay, so the last edges permutation case is when you have two edges. The permutation, you just have to swap these two adjacent edges. So you just do that algorithm, RU, R prime, U, RU2, R prime. And then you should have two adjacent ones right next to each other. Then you do that algorithm again. And then you'll have your cross edges permuted. And you can move on to the next step. Okay, so the next step and the second to last step is permutation of the corners. And while this is a case where we have no corners correctly permuted. So what you do in this case is you just do the switching corners algorithm for beginner's method. Okay, U, R, U prime, L prime, U, R prime, U prime, L. And that should land one corner in its correct spot. Note that this corner, it's in its correct spot, yellow-orange, although it's not flipped correctly. So it's still in its correct spot, and if it were flipped correctly, it would be solved. Now, you just do the switching. So this is the, when you have no corners correctly permuted, when you do that algorithm, it leads you to another case where you have three corners incorrectly permuted. So you just do that algorithm again. And if they still aren't solved, then just do it again. And that's the completion of that step. Now, all we have to do is twist these corners so that they're solved. But since twisting corners isn't legal, let's just let me show you an algorithm. So this is basically the beginner's algorithm for this. I use more algorithms than that, which I will be coming out in a video sometime in the near future. So I remember this as more of a sentence, if you can call it that, rather than an algorithm. The algorithm format will be R prime, D prime, R, D. I remember it as down, left, up, right, because that's the direction that the faces go. So down, left, up, right, down, left, up, right, down, left, up, right, down, left, up, right. And just keep doing that until the corner is solved, and then turn the up face and move to the next corner and finish the process. And you have solved the Fisher cube. Congratulations. Please like, subscribe, and comment anything you want. Bye.